Well, Rovers, how are we today? So, first off, I wanted to film this outside, but what's it like outside? It is raining. It is damp, the rain is coming down, and it is windy. Not really a big surprise for this time of the year, but certainly not a day that's fit to be outside. And I'm going to share with you a little bit later on what the weather looks like for the next 7 days. And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to do that via the internet right here at Rover's Rest. That's right, in this video, I want to show you my workaround for how I get internet here for really, well, I'm going to say next to nothing, if you will. But that's something I'll get to in a moment. The rest of the video will be spent building this beautiful little blind behind me, or what would you call it? A privacy screen that's used to give a person a little bit of privacy when they're using the composting toilet. In addition, when I was doing that project, one of the screws was stripped, which is not an uncommon occurrence when you're dealing with other people's work or your own. You know, it happens to the best of us. So what do you do when a screw is stripped? Well, you remove it and you fix it, and then you put it back in, and it's as good as new. And I'm going to be showing you that as well. So right now, I think it's time to crack on with my internet workaround. Okay, so we're looking at my laptop right here, and this is Environment Canada's website, and let's just refresh this. Right, so this is the current weather where we are. It's 54 degrees Fahrenheit, and we are going through periods of rain. And if you look out across the 7 days, it's nothing but rain for 7 days. Right now, the wind is from the southeast, 21, gusting to 30 miles an hour. Well, that's a bit of wetness for the next week for sure. I might be able to get out and get some trees planted. All right, so let's see what happens when we do a Google search. Bear in mind, I am not using any internet service provider. This is my workaround, and I'm going to show you exactly how it works in a moment. So right now, let's type in, I don't know, Rover's Rest. Well, there it is right there. Okay. Ooh. I just love that theme song. Okay, so now let's find out how is it that I'm able to get internet without a service provider way out here in the country at Rover's Rest. So let's say we do want to make a connection with our computer. We turn on our mobile data, then we go over and we turn on our hotspot, and now the phone is like an antenna that allows the computer to make a connection to the internet. Now that you've turned your phone into an internet antenna, time to flash up the computer and search for that Wi-Fi signal. Once you capture that Wi-Fi signal, then just connect and your computer will secure to, well, in this case, my phone. And from there, click on the Google icon, and next thing you know, you're in the World Wide Web. And from there, just type in Rover's Rest, and you're off to the market. Now let's find out, how many gigabytes do you really need? And inside Wi-Fi, if you can see my data usage. So I've been using this data for almost a month. It says 2 days left. And I had purchased actually 6.5 gigabytes of data, and it wasn't very expensive. And And then with that, I've only used 1.1 gigabytes. That's in 28 days. I've only used 1.1 gigabytes. So what that tells me is next time, in fact, I've already done this, next time all I really need are 2 gigabytes, which is the minimum amount of data you can get. So in Canadian dollars, I pay only $33 Canadian for unlimited calling in Canada, unlimited texting in Canada, unlimited texting internationally, and 2 gigabytes of data. And I can see that I don't use that much data, not on my phone, not on these Wi-Fi connections. And I have been using this phone pretty steadily because I wanted to find out how much gigabytes I really need, because it's easy to guess, but this little meter keeps track of it for me. So I've only used 1.1 gigabytes. And like I said, $33 covers all my telephone and all my data. And Canada is one of the most expensive places in the world for internet. So to be able to do it this cheaply in Canada is almost unheard of. In fact, the typical internet service provider in Canada is looking to charge you somewhere between $80 to $100 a month or more, depending on what bells and whistles. Plus, you have to buy their equipment, or you have to buy a router or some other equipment, which can end up in the hundreds of dollars. So really, this is going to be my go-to for the next, until I get the house built at the very least. And then there's the possibility of the space-based providers, such as Elon's Starlink. But there are also other companies looking to expand and launch into space as well. And with them, they are showing in their initial tests speeds that are, average speeds that are approximately 3 times the best possible speeds I can get in my area right now. But it's not just the speed that's of importance to me, it's also the reliability and the service. And if I end up paying just a few dollars more for better reliability and service, these are issues, by the way, that my neighbors have voiced to me, then I consider that a good investment of my money. Now, having said that, a lot of these pundits in this field are expecting the price of the space-based internet providers to come down as the beta testing is completed and as more competition comes online. Well, certainly something to keep your eye on over the next little while, I'd say. Well, as many of you know, I spent considerable time over the last year sailing across the Atlantic and stopping in a few places. And when I would stop there, I needed to get internet. Now, of course, I wasn't going to take out or get an internet service provider at every stop. That would be terribly inefficient, and you're not there long enough really to make that work. So what I did was, each place is slightly different, but in the Azores, I was able to purchase a data packet for, I think it was 10 euros, and that was 20 gigabytes. Very inexpensive, $20, and that with unlimited browsing. I think, every 3 weeks I'd have to get a new data card. Later on, when I was in Martinique, they didn't have that, but what they had were many places that had free Wi-Fi. So all you have to do is just go to a place, you buy a coffee, you have tremendously good internet when you do that, and you're able to upload a video. Now, uploading a video, bear this in mind, it takes a lot of bandwidth. Far more than you might imagine. So that's something I can't do. I could, but it would be terribly inefficient to do it via my smartphone. So the young folks, they have this down. In fact, when they walk through town, their phone starts beeping because every time they walk past a free Wi-Fi site, they get an indication, you know, and it's, oh, well, this pub, this restaurant, this public library, so many places are offering free Wi-Fi. And it's the same right here in Summerside. In Summerside, I go to the Credit Union Place, which is the name of our sports facility. And it's about $50 a month for someone like me to be a member there. And with that membership, I can go every day, go swimming in the pool, use the sauna, use the steam room, use the exercise facilities. It's a terrific thing. But they also have a great lounge that you can sit in. There's newspapers there, but there's also free Wi-Fi. Very, very good Wi-Fi that anybody can use. And that is probably one of my go-to places when I want to upload videos. The second area that I frequent is, as many of you know as well, I teach carpentry apprenticeship courses at the local college, which works out to anywhere from 2 to 6 months a year, depending on student enrollment. But that whole time that I'm there, which is most likely going to be 4 to 6 months every year, I have terrific internet available to me there. So when I'm on my break, or before class, or after class, or during my prep time, I can use that internet and I can accomplish a lot through that. So really it comes down to, what is it do I do to get my 2 gigabyte Wi-Fi, I'm not sure what you call it, 2 gigabytes of data on my phone. How far does that go? Is that enough for a person who's, say, doing Google searches, who's checking their Facebook, who's checking their Instagram, all kinds of stuff like that, with the exception of streaming videos. If you choose to stream videos, you will go through your data cap pretty fast. But if you don't stream videos, in fact, if you just hold off and you focus your time so that you do stream videos when you're at one of those free Wi-Fi centers that I mentioned before, that is the ticket to virtually free internet. So how much is it to have a smartphone that you can get a hotspot with? Now, if you're interested in setting up a similar system to what I have, or just getting a low-cost provider for your phone, then I go with Public Mobile. And Public Mobile is a subsidiary of the giant TELUS Corporation. And I'll put a code in the video description, and if you use that code, you'll actually get $10 off your first bill. So if you use auto payment, your first bill is likely to be $33 for all the things that I'd mentioned before, plus 2.5 gigabytes of data, and you'll get $10 off that. So what's in it for me? Well, when you sign up and get that $10 off, I get $1 off my bill. So I'd call that a win-win for everyone. Well, Rovers, I hope that wasn't too boring. You know, when it comes to the internet, I'm really not an expert. I'm learning as I go along. It is something that I'm getting better at all the time, but it's like anything, you know, you have to get out and you have to practice. So moving on, I want to show you how I did this right behind me, this little screen, privacy screen for what is the composting toilet. So I'll show you how I went about putting that together, and also one of the screws was stripped when I went to deal with it. So I'm going to show you what you do when you come across a stripped screw, because it's relatively easy to fix once you know what you're doing. All right, let's head out to the workshop. Well, the project today is to build a privacy screen for our composting toilet. Now, the cost of material is outrageous right now. It's about 3 times the price that it was last year at the beginning of the pandemic. So we have to try to adapt to make sure that we can carry on and finish all of our projects. Now, what I'm doing today is I'm using these old closet doors. These are bifold doors. Yesterday I drove to Charlottetown, the big smoke here on the island, and there they have a Habitat for Humanity building called Restore. And at Restore, you can get recycled building materials, which is what these are. They're not very expensive, and frankly, I like the look of this ribbon cut mahogany for bifold doors. And although I'll be using these to make a privacy screen for the composting toilet, I do in fact want to get 3 sets of these for the house build, which we'll be doing later on. So if any of you who are watching this are in the area and you happen to have some bifold doors of this vintage, reach out to me and we'll see what we can do. So without any further ado, let's just crack on with prepping these and then getting them installed. So the first step is to remove the hardware that these doors actually pivot on. So it's not a big deal, it's very easy to do. You want to use a pry bar, and a pry bar is superior to the claws of a hammer because you can see the claws of the hammer are much narrower than the pry bar, and you want to distribute the load over as big an area as possible. So you can just pry those up. After you get them to a certain point, just put your vice grips on. And then pull out. Okay, so now we want to put the hinges on. Now we're putting them on a fresh surface, so we're going to have to drill these. Before we can do that, line up the hinge, and you want to measure to a point. So the center of this hinge is 6 inches from the bottom, and the top hinge will be done the same way. And there's a center hinge that'll just go in the center. So I've established that with a pencil line. You want to make sure that the pin of the hinge is lined up with the opening, and you want to make sure that this opening is about the same right along the entire length of the gap between the doors. So once we've done that, you just want to secure it, and then you take your awl, which is really just, it's like a very sharp screwdriver, and in the center of those holes you make just a little divot, and all 4 of them without letting it move. Okay, so now I have 4 divots. I want to pre-drill these, so I'm using a 3 30-seconds bit. I came up with that size because as you want to make sure that the hole you drill is really just the size of the shank of the screw and not the threads. Go straight down. All right. Now, just realign that. Looks good. Now you want to put the screws in, but do so with a screwdriver because the wood is a little bit soft. It's just a soft wood. Now don't tighten it until you get all of the screws inched. Okay, so that one is tight or good. Okay, that's tight. That's tight. There we go, nice and tight. Now just do the same for the other 2 hinges. Now, unfortunately, this screw right here is stripped. As you can see, I'm just using very little effort and I'm turning and it's just not tightening. So we're going to remove this and I'm going to show you how to repair a stripped screw. So the first thing you'll need to do is get yourself just a couple of little slivers of a softwood. So just using a knife, just cut yourself, well, maybe a little bit bigger than that. You can also use wooden toothpicks if you have them. There we go. Now grab yourself a little piece of paper, put a little bit of white carpenter's glue on there. You don't need a lot. Okay, that should be more than enough. Then take those little slivers that we just took off that piece of wood, coat this in a bit of glue, and then just go about sticking that in that hole. See if you can get another one in there. Nope, but this one here could use some. Just see if I can get a little bit more over on this one. There we go. Okay. Okay, so now it's been about 10 or 15 minutes since I put these in. The longer you wait, the better, but it's not absolutely necessary for the glue to be totally set. What you'll need to clean this off now is a sharp chisel. So this chisel, it's relatively sharp, and you don't want to go bevel up like that. The reason you don't want to do that is it will dig in to your surface, and the chisel will want to dive. So whenever you do a cut like this, you want to make sure the bevel is up, and then just gently but firmly go over the surface. So here I'm going to use a cutting motion. There we go. And then just clean it up slightly. Great. Okay. Just pull that off to the side. Now we're ready to reinstall the screws. So we have the 2 screws. The first thing I want to do is use my awl to create a little divot right where I want it. There we go. And same over on this side. Now, when you put the screws in, don't over tighten them. That's what led to, well, that was part of the issue with this. Okay, there we go. Nice. There we go. Just stop. Don't over tighten them. Now as that glue sets up, everything will just become structurally very, very sound. Well, Rovers, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Now, in the next episode, I really do hope to share some good news with you, because we have some stuff in the offing that looks like it may turn into good news. I want to share it with you just the moment it happens. Also, in the same episode, it's my intention to break down all the costs that we've incurred so far to get Rover's Rest to where it is, which is essentially buying the property and having it surveyed, getting the permits in place, building the shop, and fitting out Rover's Rest. So anyway, until next week, have a great Easter, and thanks for watching.